This next part of the story is about the music that I listened to early on in life. I started out listening to country western artists like Hank Williams and Willie Nelson, but I also listened to a lot of rock and roll during the early years. Later on, as a teenager, I pretty much listened to all kinds of music, including folk, pop, and blues. Elvis Presley was a big influence on me growing up, and I pay tribute to the king later on in the song. First popular music I remember listening to was country and western. I started listening to Hank Williams when I was about 6 years old. I saw his life story at the movies, and his music had a big impact on my life. I also remember listening to a variety of other country artists while I was growing up. My dad was a big country western fan, and he had records by Willie Nelson, Marty Robbins, George Jones, and Johnny Cash. On nights when he and my mom went out, my brother and I would sneak out the family record player and listen to all of his records. I remember listening to Willie Nelson back when Willie played it straight. Also, Saturday nights were a good night for listening to music. During my early years, there was a variety of programs on television featuring country artists. I was listening to rock and roll almost as early as I was country. First rock and roll I listened to was Elvis Presley there at the movies. I also listened to a lot of rock and roll at the local swimming pool. The swimming pool was staffed by young college kids, and they kept the radio blasting all summer long. Q102 was a local rock and roll station out of Dallas, and they played all the classics like The Animals, Chicago, Led Zeppelin, and the Rolling Stones. Unfortunately, rock and roll was scarce in the wintertime. Local Dairy Queen had the only rock and roll record on the jukebox. And we spent our Friday and Saturday nights munching on cheeseburgers and jamming to ZZ Top. Throughout my early years growing up, I listened to all kinds of music. Television was the best source for non-traditional music in the old days. On Saturday afternoons, I listened to American Bandstand with Dick Clark. And on Saturday nights, there was Don Kirshner's weekly rock concert. Austin City Limits was also a good source for listening to the blues artists like B.B. King and folk stars like Bob Dylan. I also remember listening to a wide range of pop music programs on the major television networks. My rock and roll career began with Elvis Presley. Elvis was a tremendous influence on all of us neighborhood kids. During the 60s, we watched his movies and bought his records. Elvis meant the world to us for several reasons. He was good looking and could sing like a bird, but most important, he was the typical poor boy made good who never forgot his roots. The first record that I bought as a child was a record of his. I pay tribute to the king by singing the song that started it all. The song is called That's Alright Mama, and it's the first rock and roll song that I learned how to play. The song, written by Big Mama Thornton, was recorded by Elvis at Sun Studios in 1955. Afterwards, the world of American music was changed forever. Here is my tribute to Elvis. Long live the king.
Well, that's alright, Mama. That's alright with me. That's alright, Mama. Any way you do, well, that's alright. That's alright. That's alright, Mama. Any way you do. Well, I'm leaving town tomorrow. I'm going far away. I'm leaving town tomorrow, and I won't be back to stay. Well, that's alright. That's alright. That's alright, Mama. Any way you do. Well, Mama, she done told me, my daddy done told me too. Son, that girl you're messing with, she ain't no good for you. But that's alright. That's alright. That's alright, Mama. Any way you do. I'd say dee 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 dee. I need your loving. That's alright. That's alright, Mama. Any way you do. That's alright, mama, anyway.